The courtroom was in absolute silence. It wasn't the common silence of an ongoing trial, but that kind of heavy, suffocating silence that precedes something unexpected. The room was full, journalists, lawyers, police officers, and ordinary spectators, all attentive to the outcome of a case that promised to become a media spectacle. The defendant, a middle-aged man with downcast eyes and trembling hands, seemed to have given up fighting. The judge, seated on his pedestal of authority, raised his wooden gavel, about to seal the accused's fate. It was at that very moment that a child's voice cut through the air, thunderous and precise as a lightning bolt in the midst of a storm. "He's innocent!" shouted Noah Thompson, a boy of only 10 years old, rising from the chair where he had been sitting with his mother. His cry froze everyone present. The judge paled, his hand faltered, and the gavel fell, echoing on the floor like a harbinger of what was to come. Lisa Thompson, the boy's mother, pulled Noah by the arm, trying to make him sit down again, but it was too late. The entire courtroom was watching him. The murmur that took over the room was a mix of incredulity, confusion, and fear. But fear of what? What could a 10-year-old boy say that would visibly unsettle judges and prosecutors? On the other side of the room, a man in a dark suit pressed his lips together and discreetly brought his hand to his ear, as if he were receiving orders. The judge cleared his throat and tried to regain his composure, but his voice came out trembling. "Order in the court," he commanded without much conviction. Noah, however, did not avert his gaze. Something inside him told him that this moment was bigger than himself, bigger than anything he had ever experienced. He did not know exactly how, but he was sure that this was not just an audience. It was the beginning of something much larger. Lisa felt a shiver run up her spine. The maternal instinct screamed that something was wrong, but it was not just concern over her son's impulsive attitude. It was the way the looks converged on Noah, not only with surprise, but with calculation. The man in the dark suit, who had been merely observing discreetly, now moved. With slow and precise steps, he approached the prosecutor's table and whispered something in his ear. The prosecutor did not react immediately. First, he observed Noah with an analytical look, as if he were evaluating an unexpected threat. Then, he turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I request an immediate recess," he declared, his voice laden with urgency. The judge hesitated, sweeping the room with his eyes, as if seeking invisible approval. Something about that request was not normal, and everyone knew it. A simple comment from a child should not be a reason to interrupt a trial, but for some reason, it was. Noah felt his mother's hand grip his arm more forcefully, a grip that said, "Don't say anything more." Nah. But he couldn't ignore the feeling that he had said something that everyone feared. He couldn't explain it, but that word, innocent, seemed to have carried a weight far greater than it should. Suddenly, 2 side doors opened simultaneously. 2 police officers entered, their looks rigid and their postures firm. The judge cleared his throat again, as if trying to mask his discomfort. "Granted. We will take a 15-minute recess," he announced, and struck the gavel with more force than necessary. The man in the dark suit quickly turned and left through the side door, while the police officers remained, as if expecting something. Lisa did not need any more to understand. They were not there for the defendant. They were there for Noah. Lisa acted on instinct. She grabbed Noah by the wrist and abruptly stood up, pulling him toward the exit before anyone could react. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her expression was unyielding. "We're leaving," she said firmly, not leaving room for contestation. But before she could take 2 steps, one of the officers blocked their path. "Please wait, ma'am," he said, in a tone too polite to be sincere. "We need the boy to stay for a few questions." Lisa did not bother to hide the disdain in her voice. "My son is 10 years old. There is no reason for him to be interrogated." The other officer, an older man, folded his arms. "It's just a standard procedure. In a few minutes, you will be free to go." But it was a lie. Lisa knew that something very wrong was happening. The look of the judge, the prosecutor's reaction, the presence of those police officers, none of it was normal. And above all, the presence of that man in the dark suit who was now talking to someone on the phone, casting quick glances at Noah. Noah felt his body tense, as if his own instinct were warning him that something terrible was about to happen. He looked at the defendant, the man who should be the center of that trial, but who now seemed irrelevant to everyone there. The man stared back at him, his eyes full of surprise and relief. Noah did not have time to process. Lisa moved again, but this time quickly. In an unexpected movement, she pulled Noah to the side and dodged the officer who was trying to block her way. People in the room began to murmur, some standing up, confused. Noah stumbled, but his mother held him firmly and continued walking, ignoring the protests. The other officer tried to catch up with them, but Lisa had already identified the nearest side exit. They had seconds to flee before the true weight of the situation fell upon everyone. But then, when they were a few meters from the door, a voice echoed from the back of the room. "Hold them both!" The command was curt, direct, and immediately the two officers sprang into action. Lisa tried to run, pulling Noah along with her, but the strong hand of one of the men grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Panic rose in her throat, but she couldn't stop. Noah, frightened, tried to free his mother's hand, but before he could react, a second officer grabbed his shoulder. "Don't do that!" Lisa shouted, her voice mixing anger and fear. But no one in the courtroom spoke out. Lawyers, jurors, journalists, everyone just watched, some with expressions of shock, others pretending that nothing was happening. It was then that Lisa realized they knew. Maybe not everyone, but many there understood exactly what was happening. And they would not interfere. Noah struggled, pulling at his arm in an attempt to free himself, but the officer's strength was greater. "Mom!" His cry was cut off when the man in the dark suit approached, looking directly at Lisa. "Calm down, Mrs. Thompson," he said, his voice soft yet laden with something ominous. "We do not wish to hurt anyone. We just need to talk." Lisa spat on the floor, her chest rising and falling with rapid breaths. "If you want to talk, let go of my son now." The man smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "That's not how it works. You know that." Lisa looked around, searching for an escape, a gap, anything that could turn the situation in her favor. But everything seemed against them. Noah's heart pounded in his chest, and at that moment, something inside him said that this was not just an ordinary detention. Those men were there for a much bigger reason. And he was that reason. Lisa knew she couldn't trust them. The weight of the dark-suited man's gaze upon her was suffocating, but it was not that which paralyzed her. It was the silence of the courtroom. It was the absence of resistance from anyone there. If no one opposed, it meant that this scene had happened before, and that everyone knew the outcome. But Lisa was not a woman who accepted predetermined endings. She straightened her posture, her gaze fixed on the man before her. "If this is just a conversation, then we are leaving here, now." The man sighed, almost as if he were tired of the situation, and made a subtle gesture with his head. At the same moment, the officer holding Noah pulled him more forcefully, separating him from his mother. Lisa's scream was instinctive, her reaction fierce. With a swift movement, she dug her nails into the man's arm, forcing him to let go of Noah for a second. 1 second was all they needed. Without hesitation, Lisa grabbed Noah's hand and pulled him forward with all her strength. The officer tried to catch them again, but she ducked, causing him to lose his balance. Noah felt his body being pulled amidst the chaos, his feet almost leaving the ground, as his mother advanced through the room like a storm. The side door was open. They were so close. But then a sound echoed through the courtroom, the metallic sound of a gun being unlocked. "Stop!" The voice of the man in the dark suit came coldly, without haste, without hesitation. Lisa froze. Her arm was still holding Noah, but her eyes were now fixed on the barrel of the gun pointed directly at her. It wasn't the police who wanted to arrest them. It was something much worse. Noah had never been so close to a gun before. The metallic shine of the pistol reflected the cold light of the courtroom, and time seemed to slow down. The ensuing silence was even more terrifying than the previous shouts. Lisa breathed with difficulty, her chest rising and falling, while her gaze assessed the options. But there were no options. The man in the dark suit held the gun up, steady, without tremors, without hesitation. He knew he had control of the situation. "Let's make this easy," he said, his voice firm but unhurried. "You come with us, Mrs. Thompson, and the boy as well. No more scenes." Lisa closed her eyes for a second, trying to think, but her mind was in turmoil. Noah felt his mother's grip on his hand tighten, as if she were trying to protect him, even though there was nowhere to run. He felt his body freeze, not knowing whether he should cry, scream, or try to run. But then something unexpected happened. From the back of the room, a loud noise made everyone turn their heads. The main door of the courthouse was flung open, and a woman in a dark overcoat entered, walking with firm steps. Her gaze did not show fear or surprise, only certainty. "Drop the weapon," she said, and her voice cut through the air like a blade. The man in the dark suit slightly lowered the pistol, narrowing his eyes. "You?" he murmured, clearly irritated. Lisa and Noah had no idea who she was, but at that moment, it didn't matter. The game had just changed. The woman in the dark overcoat advanced without hesitation, her eyes fixed on the man in the suit. There was no fear in her posture, only the certainty of someone who already knew how this scene would end. Lisa watched, not understanding what was happening, but feeling that this stranger might be their only chance to get out of there. The man in the suit hesitated for an instant, as if calculating the consequences. "You shouldn't be here," he said, clenching his jaw. The woman only smiled slightly, crossing her arms. "Funny, I was about to say the same about you." The entire courtroom seemed suspended at that moment. The officers who had been holding Lisa and Noah were now motionless, waiting for an order. The prosecutor avoided looking directly at any side, and the judge kept his eyes down, his hands trembling. Then, with an irritated sigh, the man in the suit lowered the gun, tucking it under his jacket. "This isn't over," he murmured, casting a sharp look at Noah before turning to leave. The woman watched as he disappeared through the side door, not trying to stop him. Lisa still held Noah tightly, her heart racing, trying to understand what had just happened. It was only then that the woman turned to them. "You need to get out of here. Now," she said without preamble. Lisa frowned, hesitant. "Who are you?" The woman extended her hand. "Evelyn Carter. If you want to keep your son alive, trust me." Lisa did not know if she could trust her, but she also knew that staying there was not an option. So without any more questions, she took the extended hand and left with Noah, not looking back. Crossing the courthouse corridors felt like a race against time. Evelyn led the way, her steps firm and quick, not looking to the sides. Lisa kept her grip tight on Noah's hand, feeling the boy almost stumble as he tried to keep pace. No one stopped them. No one even looked at them. It was as if that escape were being deliberately ignored, or as if the people there knew that getting involved would mean a risk they were not willing to take. When they exited through the back door, the cold air hit them full force. The city was in motion, as if nothing had happened, cars passing by, pedestrians walking hurriedly, oblivious to what was going on inside that building. But Lisa knew they were being watched. Somewhere, watchful eyes were following them. Evelyn opened the door of a black car parked on the side street and made a quick gesture. "Get in." Lisa hesitated for a second. Who was this woman? Why was she helping? But looking at Noah, seeing the fear printed on his face, was enough to make her act. She pushed her son into the car and got in right after. Evelyn took the wheel and sped off, as if she had everything planned. Lisa looked back, watching the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror. "Are you going to tell me right now who the hell you are?" she asked, still holding Noah close to her. Evelyn kept her eyes on the road. "Later. First, we need to get off their radar." Lisa wanted to insist, but she realized that the woman would not give in so easily. She looked at Noah, who trembled without saying a word. She knew that whatever the truth was, it would not be easy to hear. The car glided through the busy city streets, but Evelyn seemed to know exactly where she was going. Lisa kept her eyes on the rapidly passing scenery through the window, trying to control her breathing. Her heart was still pounding in her chest. Everything had happened in a matter of minutes, and now they were inside a car with a stranger, fleeing from men who seemed willing to do anything to catch them. She looked at Noah, who remained silent, his eyes fixed on the car's floor. It was as if he were trying to process everything at once. Lisa ran her hand through his hair, trying to calm him, but deep down, she herself did not know if she could calm down. After a few minutes of silence, Evelyn finally spoke, without taking her eyes off the road. "They won't stop looking for you." Lisa crossed her arms. "And who exactly are they?" Evelyn sighed, as if choosing her words carefully. "The Black Veil, a group that controls more than you can imagine. Politicians, police officers, entire court systems. Your son," she cast a quick glance at Noah through the rearview mirror, "is at the center of it." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Noah is just a child. What could they want with him? Evelyn gripped the wheel, as if hesitating to answer. "It's not just about him. It's about his father." Lisa fell silent, feeling her stomach churn. It had been 5 years since James had disappeared, and suddenly, his name was coming up again in a way she never expected. Lisa felt her entire body stiffen at the sound of James's name. She hadn't spoken of him for years, not because she wanted to forget him, but because she had no answers. One day, he left for work and never returned. The police did not investigate thoroughly. Neighbors whispered hypotheses, but the truth was an anguished void. And now, a stranger appeared out of nowhere, saying that he was involved in something much larger than she could imagine. "What do you know about James?" Lisa asked, not hiding the tension in her voice. Evelyn made a sharp turn, accelerating when the traffic light turned yellow. "Your husband didn't run away out of cowardice. He was trying to protect you." Lisa felt a knot tighten in her throat. It was what she had always wanted to believe, but time and the lack of answers had worn down her faith. "Protect from what?" she insisted, now more firmly. Evelyn cast another quick glance in the rearview mirror before continuing. "James worked for the Black Veil before he understood what he was involved in. He was one of the few who managed to get out, and he took something with him." Noah raised his eyes for the first time since they entered the car. His voice came out small, but full of curiosity and fear. "What did he take?" Evelyn sighed, as if she knew that this was the point of no return. "Information. The kind of thing that could bring down the entire structure of the Black Veil. But he didn't trust anyone, so he hid the data in a place where no one would look." She paused and turned her head slightly back, staring at Noah. "He hid it in you." The ensuing silence was crushing. Lisa looked at her son, trying to understand, but her mind screamed that none of this made sense. Noah was just a child. How could he carry information he didn't even know existed? Noah felt a chill run up his spine. How could something be hidden inside him without him knowing? His heart raced, his mind searching for memories that could make sense. But all he found were confused fragments of his childhood, blurred images of his father smiling, singing songs he barely remembered. Lisa, on the other hand, felt something else, a mix of disbelief and deep fear. "This doesn't make sense," she murmured, shaking her head. Noah was very young when James disappeared. He couldn't have hidden anything in him. Evelyn kept her eyes on the road. "Do you think that information only exists in files and numbers? What your son has is not something that can be stolen from a safe. James implanted it in him in a way that only he could access." Lisa did not reply. Everything was too absurd, but at the same time, something inside her said that Evelyn wasn't lying. Noah looked at his mother, waiting for her to say something that would make everything go back to normal. but her look was that of someone who realizes she is on the edge of an abyss. "If this is true," Lisa began, but her voice faltered. She didn't even know how to finish the sentence. Evelyn seemed to understand. "If this is true, then the Black Veil will not stop until they manage to rip that information out of him, and they are not patient." The weight of those words fell like a stone on Lisa and Noah. He clenched his fists, feeling small, defenseless. How could he carry something so important without even knowing it? The idea that his own body held a truth capable of toppling a secret organization seemed like a story taken from a movie, but the fear on his mother's face and the urgency in Evelyn's voice said otherwise. This was real. The car continued along increasingly empty streets, leaving behind the bustling center of the city. Noah felt his chest tighten, as if with every mile he was drifting further away from the life he knew. Lisa remained silent, absorbing Evelyn's words, trying to find meaning in something that seemed impossible. What had James hidden in his own son? How could one foresee a future threat, as if it was something anyone could do? A mother's instinct screamed that this was too dangerous to be true. But what if it was? Lisa looked at Noah, trying to see something in him she had never noticed before. He was just a boy, her boy. How could he be the central piece of something so big? Evelyn made a sharp turn and entered an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. As soon as she parked, she turned to the two of them. "We need to find a way to access what James hid in him before they find you." Lisa frowned, exhausted from chasing answers without understanding anything. "And how the hell do we do that? I can't just open my son's head and look for secret files." Evelyn remained calm, but her gaze was intense. "No, but you can help him remember." Noah swallowed hard. "Remember what?" Evelyn took a deep breath before answering. "Your father knew you wouldn't remember on your own. So he created a path, something simple, something that was part of your childhood." Noah felt his mind spinning. Suddenly, flashes of old memories surfaced. Laughter, songs, games. Nothing seemed important. But what if it was? Evelyn saw the confusion in Noah's eyes and moved closer to him more gently. "I know it sounds crazy, but what your father did was protect you. He created small triggers that only you would understand. Moments from your childhood. Simple things. You might not remember everything now, but when the time is right, everything will make sense." Lisa looked at her son, her eyes filled with worry. "How is this going to work, Evelyn?" Evelyn took a deep breath, trying to choose her words carefully. "James knew that the Black Veil would come after you one day. He knew that the only way to bring down this organization was to leave the information with someone who would be impossible to manipulate. This is more than a key. It's a code. And it's you, Noah, who holds the key." Noah was quiet, his thoughts spinning as he tried to piece together the puzzle. "But I don't remember anything. I don't know anything." Evelyn smiled with a look of understanding. "Not yet, but we'll start somewhere. Your father left clues, words, gestures, songs. He used everything he could to hide it in a way only you could understand." Noah closed his eyes for a moment, trying to recall anything that might be useful. A song, a game, but nothing seemed to make sense. He could only remember simple moments, his mother singing to him before bed, the smell of coffee at home, the laughter while playing together in the yard. How could those things be important now? And then, like a flash, he remembered something his father used to do with him when he was very small. It was a game, a sequence of finger taps, something so simple yet different. He didn't know why, but he remembered exactly how the taps followed a pattern, a numerical sequence. Noah looked at Evelyn, a sense of clarity beginning to form. He had never thought much about that tapping game. To him, it was just a way to pass the time with his father. But now, somehow, he knew that it wasn't random. There was something behind it. "I remember," he said, his voice trembling but determined. "It was a game. My father tapped 3 times and then waited. I had to respond with the same tap." Evelyn did not show surprise. That's it, Noah. Those taps are more important than you imagine. They weren't just a game. Your father was coding something. Lisa looked at her son, a mixture of incredulity and concern. Are you serious? This is real. Evelyn nodded. James created a code. Every tap, every pause had a meaning. He left it for Noah to access what he hid inside his mind. Now, Noah, I need you to focus. Try to remember what it was like. The taps, the numbers. Noah closed his eyes, his mind traveling back to the moments with his father. He remembered the sound of James's hands, tapping softly, as if marking time. Slow at first, then faster, as if it were a dance. The sequence always started with 3 taps, then a pause, then 2 more taps, another pause again, and then the numbers, as if they were a game. He tried to recall the exact numbers. The pattern was there, right on the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't reach it. Then something clicked. He took his mother's cell phone from her purse and typed in the numbers that repeated most in his memory. 31231. The code. The record. He didn't know how, but something told him that this was what he needed. Noah pressed his fingers on the cell phone screen, typing the numbers hurriedly, but also with a sense of urgency he had never felt before. The phone vibrated slightly, as if recognizing the pattern he had just entered. A screen appeared, asking for a password. It was a decisive moment. He looked at his mother and at Evelyn, who now watched the device with the same tension on their faces. Is this what my father wanted me to find?" Noah asked, his voice lower than usual. Evelyn did not answer immediately, but her eyes showed that if it were, then they were on the right path. "It is. Trust your father." Noah took a deep breath and entered the code again, this time more confidently. He knew that this was more than just a child's game, more than simple numbers. He was breaking a code that his father had left for him, a code that contained the keys to destroy the Black Veil. The screen flickered for a moment, and then unlocked. Noah did not understand what followed. A series of documents appeared quickly on the screen. They were encoded, but the words stood out amidst the sea of characters. Member list, confidential information, Operation Vortex. The message was clear. What Noah had just accessed was the record. He looked at Evelyn, who quickly took the phone from his hands, studying the documents with a speed Noah couldn't follow. She blinked once, then again. "We got it. This is what we need." Lisa, for her part, couldn't fully understand, but she knew that somehow this was the moment that would change everything. The Black Veil had its claws everywhere, but that record was the key to bring them down. "Now, what do we do?" Lisa asked, her voice laden with despair. Evelyn looked at her, a firm look deciding what to do next. "Now, we do what your husband wanted us to do from the beginning. We're going to show the world the truth." Evelyn quickly took the phone and connected it to a laptop she pulled from a bag. "We need to do this before they find us. The Black Veil has many resources, and it won't be long until they realize the record has been accessed." Noah watched, still not fully understanding everything, but feeling the weight of his actions. He didn't know how, but he had become the key to it all. His mind was in turmoil, but the determination on Evelyn's and his mother's faces made him understand. This was the moment to act. The computer screen flickered for a few seconds, and then Evelyn began typing furiously. She was hacking into systems, breaking codes, unlocking what had been hidden for so long. Every second felt like an eternity, but they had no choice. "This is going to expose everything?" Lisa asked, her voice tense. Evelyn did not answer immediately, but her expression showed that everything was happening quickly. "Yes, when this goes live, the names of those involved, the evidence, everything will come to light. They won't be able to hide anything anymore." Lisa looked at Noah, her heart heavy with the thought that their lives would never be the same after this. But she also knew that they had no other option. The truth had to be revealed, no matter the cost. While Evelyn worked to send the documents for a live transmission on the internet, the sound of cars arriving at the warehouse made everyone's heart race. Apparently, The Black Veil was already on its way. "We have to leave now," Evelyn said, rising quickly. "And we'd better run. They will try to stop this transmission at any cost." Lisa grabbed Noah's hand, and the three of them ran toward the side door of the warehouse. Evelyn paused for a second, looked at the computer, and then at Lisa. "Now the world will know what you are facing. We're going to make them pay." The warehouse door opened with a creak. The moment Evelyn, Lisa, and Noah stepped out into the street, the sound of engines revving echoed in the distance, followed by shouts and hurried footsteps. They were being followed. Evelyn glanced quickly back. "We don't have time. The race has begun, and if we stay here, we won't get out alive." They ran along the deserted street, passing by old, empty buildings. The wind cut across Noah's face, but he barely felt it. His mind was focused on one thing. All of this was happening because he, an ordinary boy, had done something extraordinary. He had unlocked the key to destroy the Black Veil, and now, more than ever, he knew what needed to be done. They passed through a narrow alley, and Evelyn signaled for them to hide behind a stack of boxes. They were out of sight, but the feeling of being watched was constant. The noise of engines now seemed closer. Lisa looked at her son and hugged him tightly. "Are you okay, Noah?" She didn't need to ask. She knew he was carrying a weight he shouldn't have, but somehow he seemed stronger than she had ever imagined. Evelyn, however, did not seem to care about the immediate pursuit. She was focused on something else. "We're almost there," she said with a tense smile. What happened at the warehouse was just the beginning. Now let's make sure the world sees the truth. They were at a point of no return. The Black Veil already knew what was happening, but the record now exposed was spreading across the world. Social media was ablaze, and the incriminating documents were being shared at a speed no one could have predicted. Their downfall was inevitable, but at the same time, the danger was closer than ever. The sound of distant gunshots made everyone freeze. The Black Veil was behind them, closer than they imagined. Evelyn made an urgent gesture, calling them to move forward. "We need a safe place now. We can't waste time." They ran, and adrenaline took over each of them, but Noah felt something different. It wasn't just fear. There was something inside him that ignited a will to fight, to not let everything his father had done be in vain. He was no longer just a frightened boy. He was part of something bigger. They arrived at a small apartment on a quiet street, and Evelyn quickly ushered them inside. The place was empty but safe for now. Lisa looked at Noah, her eyes filled with tears, but also with new determination. "You did it, Noah. You were brave." The boy did not know how to respond, but his mother was right. They were in the final stretch. The Black Veil had been exposed, and no one could ignore the truth any longer. Evelyn sat at the computer once more, activating the transmissions that were about to break on the main news channels. The world would witness the fall of one of the most powerful and secret organizations in history. All the names of the Black Veil's members, their connections, and their betrayals were being disclosed, and with every second, more people joined the fight against the corrupt system. But the fight was far from over. While the first reactions began to emerge in the media, a group of hooded men invaded the apartment, breaking down the door violently. The race against time had never been so intense. Evelyn, with a steely look, stood up. "Now it's our turn to run. They won't catch us." She turned to Lisa and Noah. "The world now knows the truth, but we need to disappear. There is no more safety, but we have what we need to ensure that none of this is erased." Noah looked at his mother, who held his hand tightly. They were fleeing, but in a different way. They had hope, and that was all they needed. They would survive, and the Black Veil would fall. Justice finally was beginning to be served.